now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Are we live?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, excellent. Sorry, guys.
It's okay.
Should
No,
come
it's
up in a
okay.
minute.
All right. My God. All right.
I confirm that it comes up on the
Okay, what's about?
on the stream.
Okay, so I will play the introduction.
There we go. It is going.
Okay, we're live. Yeah.
We're live.
Yeah.
So welcome to this, our second QTube Composers Roundtable, where today we'll be focusing on games. So let's meet our panel. I'm Brian Waters, your host and the founder of the QTube, formerly worked for Trident Audio and Allen and Heath in the audio industry. I'm delighted to introduce my co-host, Olga Kryakvina. Olga's the founder of Heart, which is a project to help artists build careers with a focus on games, and she has 8 years experience in the game dev industry. Next up, our industry insider, Jerry Lenin, based in Moscow, is Senior Sound Director at Buka Entertainment, creators and publishers of many AAA games, and Jerry will give us the perspective from within the game development industry. Mina Shamali joins us very early in the morning from Australia. Good morning, Mina.
This talk is being presented on the land of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation here in Victoria, Australia. Paulina Sami, the creative director for Dragon Bear Studios, approaches me about potentially writing music for the game they're working on. As she goes on to describe Enchanted, this co-op adventure where you're running an inn, you're serving customers, you're pacifying and fighting monsters. Now, who am I? I am a person of Middle Eastern descent. I am part Lebanese, part Egyptian by heritage. At this point, I'm an Australian citizen. I also grew up with video games, and at the age of 16, I thoroughly fell in love with video game music as a result of playing Hitman 2 Silent Assassin. The music by Danish composer Jesper Kyd blew me away. It was strange and it was awesome.
Chase Bethia joins us from America. Welcome, Chase. Chase is a freelance composer, sound designer, and engineer for video games and other media. And finally, welcome to Jade, JD Wasabi, in London. Jade describes herself as a multidisciplinary musician, specializing in writing quirky fantasy music to designing chilling soundscapes in horror, working on podcasts, compositions for art exhibitions, and indie games.
Hello.
Hi again.
Hello.
Hi, guys.
Hey.
Okay. Hopefully we've overcome those technical issues. So yeah, I apologize to everybody, those people watching and our panelists. I'm very, very sorry about that.
Everything is fine. Don't worry about it.
All good.
It's all a learning curve. So okay, over to Olga, my co-host, to get the discussion started.
Yeah, so I think that it's better to start with, a general idea about how each of you guys broke into the industry. So could you please describe briefly your path, and especially it would be interesting to know about obstacles that you faced and how you actually overcome them. So who will start?
You can choose. Who would you like to start?
I don't know.
Okay,
Miny.
let me start right from the gate. And my story is very weird because in my previous time I was a rock musician and I performed a lot of gigs. But my friends found me in our rehearsal base and suggest me suggested me to build the sound studio for a very popular Russian publisher, Akela Games. This publisher is not exists anymore, but it was many years ago, about 20 years ago. And I built a studio. I made a project of soundproof booth and control room. And after that, they asked me, do you know anyone who can sit here and do something? I said, why it's not me? I did it, and I know everything in the studio, and I can work here.
Three of the most dangerous words anyone can utter.
Yeah.
Why not me?
So, and this is my start. It was, I don't know, coincidence. Maybe it's a fortune. I don't know, but it happened, and I'm happy that I'm in this industry.
So do you think that what was the key initial trigger? It was the connection that you had with this person, or?
I think it's, it's my friends, it's the society I've been
Connected with, yeah.
I've been connected to, and it was your communication.
Yeah.
It depends of your opening. It depends of your wish, first of all. If you really want to do this, the universe will show you the way. It's simple. If you if you feel some kind of tension, if you feel you just want to earn money and that is all, it's not working in this way, because if you think just about money, you gotta. So I'm not sure it's got to be a good result in this, because if you have no soul in what you do, you cannot get a good result, and you cannot satisfy your client, or your team you're working with.
Or at the very least, it's not something that will yield longevity. Because especially game development cycles that can take a couple of years at least, you're sitting there, it's like, when am I going to make my money, or how am I going to make my money, or I've gotten paid this fee, but I'm still going to work this for the next 6 months or a year. That kind of mentality won't work, will it?
Yeah.
So
it can work to a point, I think.
I think the key thing of interest right now in this conversation is that initial step, that starts the ball rolling.
You need a wish to build. You need a wish to be involved in this process from the beginning to the end, and you must be interested in the mega final good result. It must be the best game all over the world, no matter what it is. Is it a platformer or AAA? It must be the best game of the world, with no any question.
Jerry, I can see why you're successful. This is good.
So, I must say that I work with AAA projects. I've been working with very little projects, such as little arcade games, mobile games. And every time it was like, I've been very interested in all what am I doing in the music and sound design, because everything goes from another. It's like a chain. And when we work together with developers, I start my career like a sound designer.
Right.
I made sound design for Pirates of Caribbean. Akela Games, Pirates of the Caribbean, the game, what was published right after the Pirates of the Caribbean film, the first film,
right?
Curse of Black Pearl. Black Pearl Curse, yeah, and we made everything in the house with tons of sound libraries. I've been asking for the Walt Disney guys, help me to find the good sounds for cannons, for ships, for sails, for winds. They say, oh, you know, we have so much work. You better do it yourself. Okay, it was my first project. I never heard about what can I do and what will I do in the game industry. And another programmer came to me and say, you know, man, I'm so much busy with programming. Can you program the sound engine by itself? I said, how can I do that? He said, okay, I'll show you a couple of tricks and you'll figure out by yourself. And that is all. And I found it very interesting for myself, and I started to figure out where the legs grows up. So, and I think it's very, very important things to be involved and to be interested in this theme, because it's very, very important.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jerry. Mina, do you have anything to add?
Well, if we're speaking to my own journey,
or people that you've spoken with, perhaps as well on your show.
Yeah, well, like someone said in the chat, it is that step is definitely very different for every person. So where I'm at now is I'm working as a composer on my first, fully composer on my first game, but I've done co-composing previously. I've been a session instrumentalist on a few video games previously, or instrumentalist and vocalist, and the first video game I actually did was a student project back when I was studying composition. These students kind of sent in a request to the composition department. Hey, we're doing this video game. Do any of the composers want to do this? And I was studying a classical composition, or like contemporary classical composition degree, so it wasn't tailored at video games. I got the email like, yep. Can this be my project for the semester? Can it? Okay, cool. Excellent. So then I proceeded to basically rip off my favorite composers, unknowingly. Not rip it off, but it's just like, I was very, you listen back and it's like, wow, you can really hear that influence. Thank you, Luke. I've got the chat open, so I'll just end up responding to people as we're talking.
There's a lot of chat. It's good.
That's really awesome. That's really awesome to see people here. Hopefully this is very helpful. But yeah, I started kind of, while I was studying, I was trying to do many different things and figure out where I was. I wanted to do video games. That was one of my most primary factors that motivates me to become a composer. But you know, you also want to do film. You also want to do anything else. Whenever I've gone to like Disneyland, I've wanted to compose for a theme ride. Because why not? Because it's really fun. It's like, imagine you just create this great orchestral thing for a theme ride, and everyone gets it for 2 minutes. No one cares who wrote it, but they might enjoy it. That experience is really nice and visceral. And a few years into it, I started basically connecting with other composers. To be honest, I actually had a dream that I met my favorite director, Christopher Nolan, and that he was going to hire me for a project, and maybe he was going to fire Hans Zimmer for once. But I woke up and I'm like, I am so far away from this. I don't know how the heck I'm going to get there. So I started connecting with composers, especially people who had been doing demos for sound libraries, for sample libraries, and just kind of saying, hey, really love your work, and just, you know, I found you on Facebook, cool, let's just connect. And then eventually someone connected me to the Scorecast community, which is an online community with a lot of composers from different places. Through that, someone said, hey, I need to work, I need someone that might be able to help me with hip-hop and R&B. And that was a composer I was already following, Piotr Michal, whom you might know did the music for Frostpunk. And he was doing this game called Funky Smugglers, and I just sent him we connected. We started talking about it, and I said, "Hey, here I can do some, I can write some lyrics and do some hip hop or that kind of stuff, and I've got someone who can sing some really amazing soulful vocals." And then we started collaborating over the next 4 months, and then there was a video game project I was part of.
So the Composer platform was the initial connecting point.
Yeah, because what tends to happen is a lot of composers will connect with other composers, but we don't quite know where to go from there, because you need to be connecting with the people who are actually going to hire you for stuff.
Yeah,
and being that I could provide a service to other composers, that kind of got me in, and I could speak to people at 11-bit studios who had made this game, and it was a leg in.
So So kind of having an active profile, active presence in the right places, the right community.
Yeah, because the one piece of consistent advice I can give anyone, which obviously it varies for everyone, but nobody's gonna hire you for something they don't know you can do.
Yeah.
Like, people aren't mind readers, so you can't just kind of have no evidence of what you do and say, "Hey, why isn't anyone asked me to do this big amazing sci-fi score?" Well, no one's heard that you could do it, and they've heard a lot of other people who can do it, so they're going to go to those people first. And just to finish it off, from there I kind of went into a bit of music journalism. I was doing reviews of sample libraries and interviewing composers through this website called Film and Game Composers, and then I started kind of running things over there for a while. So got a lot of PR contacts, started talking to a lot of video game composers as a result, which was really, I will say I was kind of starstruck at that. And then having that kind of presence of people hearing me talk, I ended up catching the ear of our classical station in Australia, ABC Classic, which is kind of similar to Classic FM or BBC Three, and they were developing a show similar to The Sound of Gaming or High Score that Jessica Curry, the excellent composer, hosts. And I don't know if they were influenced by that, but they said, "Hey, we want to bring in video game music into the classical station." And hey, here's this guy. We already know he can speak. We already know what he sounds like on mic. And they had my resume from a previous application, and they said, "Well, this person has spoken to a lot of video game composers, has done his thesis on video game music. So there's a lot of mention of video games on this person. Maybe we should talk to him." And they did. We had a conversation, and by 2018, I was hosting a show on video game music. Which means I now have listened to way more video game music than I thought was possible.
and approximately, I mean, ballpark figure, like how many video game composers have you actually interviewed on that show? I mean, do you do interviews on the show?
No, on the radio, no. Technically, I did have one. We only because it's mostly a music show. It's mostly for the listener to kind of hear the music and contextualize it. I'd love to do interviews. It's just not in that scope. But previously I had interviewed, because it was film, TV, and video game composers. So a lot of them were film and TV, but I think at least 3 or 4 game composers, including Austin Wintry around the time he was doing Assassin's Creed Syndicate. We had this nice extended chunk of time chatting, and it was really cool.
Cool. Okay. Thank you, Mina. Jade.
You're welcome. Sorry for all that.
No worries. I can see that you're definitely awake. Jade.
Yeah, it'll wear off soon. Don't worry.
Jade.
So I started off in quite a typical Asian household where I was trying to learn all the instruments under the sun, so piano and violin. And then my dad got me a PlayStation as a well-done present. And after that, I just fell in love with Final Fantasy Series 7 was my first game, but Final Fantasy 9 was the game that made me decide, I definitely want to write game music and pursue kind of more composition and all that. Study-wise, I actually focus more music tech because I thought like, well, I could go down the classical, learning classical music down that route, or I can start to learn more about tech side. So I went through that. For my final kind of dissertation project, I actually made my own game. And which was very, very difficult, especially when you're like, you're a teenager, you're trying to like juggle life, and also you're trying to like get in there. So I thought like, okay, the quickest way I can actually get into game music is to actually make a game.
Yeah.
So I managed it. I cried a lot. It was very, very hard to get like a single button to work, but I did it. I guess the turning point in which I actually like officially got into the industry, as in like, oh, someone has actually like spoken to me outside of my friendship group and said, hey, do you want to work together, was actually through DeviantArt.
Right.
So a lot of my friends at that time were artists, so I obviously had an art account and I did a bit of art as well, but my calling was more music. So it just so happened that I came across quite a prolific artist who said, oh, hey, this is my new game studio, come and check out the new webpage and all that. And I just dropped in a message and say, hey, I'm a new person in the industry. It'll be really cool if you can look at my portfolio website and just give me some feedback as an audio person. And it turned out that yeah. It's just like when you're desperate, just like the worst that could happen was that this person will say no, or this person would just ignore your message. But actually this person just said, oh, hey, we're looking for an audio person, and let's have a conversation.
Okay.
So that happened, and it's really funny because after all these years of studying music and like worrying about my university grades and all that, the thing that kind of got me this first proper big gig was that they were most impressed that I did a game by myself. So yeah, it's I was just like, oh, okay. So after all that, tears spent trying to practice a very particular hard piece for your exams and all that, the thing that got me in was like, oh, you actually made a game by yourself from beginning concept to the end where it's a playable demo. That's something. So I'm like, okay. And yeah, so that's basically what happened.
That's very cool.
Yeah. I think I would like to finish that game music is definitely a marathon and not a sprint. It is a long-term thing that you need to keep inputting, and you're going to get a lot of like gigs that will fall through. Even if you do get a gig, there's always a risk that that game or something will just fail, or there'll be no funding. So just FYI to everyone who wants to get into this industry, it's a long process.
And I get an amen.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jade. That's great. And, you're still young, so it's not such a long call. I saw a lot of connections between the things that the three of you said, actually. I mean, the thing that you said about creating your own game, it really reminded me or connected with, or resonated, I suppose, with what Jerry said about showing your passion, for what you're doing and sort of just getting stuck in, and getting your hands dirty. And I think that really helps. I mean, that's something that's happened to me in an entirely different industry. I sort of just got my hands dirty in my sort of free time, as it were, and then it opened doors to get into a career. So yeah.
What did you get your hands dirty doing, Brian?
We're not here to talk about that. Okay, look, I'm really excited to see that we have viewers, yes. and we have questions. So do you mind if I just refer to one or two of those questions?
Please do.
Absolutely.
All right, so I'm scrolling up, trying to. Yeah, here we go. All right. So the first question was from Jessica Jenks. Hi, Jessica. I think, Jessica, you know somebody, right? I've come across your name somewhere. Anyway, what's the best way to get your foot in the door for a paying gig? Paying, I think, being the critical word, writing music for video games. Is there a quick answer to that? Is there a sort of two-sentence answer to that? Or is it an incredibly complex thing to try and address? Anything you would say, guys?
First of all, I may say you need a good portfolio with a lot of multi-genre demo themes. And the best thing when you can operate a lot of genres, synths, orchestral, and you need to be multi-instrumental. The 21st century allow you that. You know, a lot of synthesizers, samplers can allow you to be a multi-genre composer. And it must be proved in your portfolio. This is first and most important thing. Another thing, you have to expand your community. You have to look for opportunities in many ways. It must be platforms for composers. It must be some forums, groups in web. You can, you must be specialized in your personal PR process. And surely the very, very important things I want to declare right now, you have to understand that games made by developers, not by publishers. I'm working in a publishing company for many years, and I received a lot of demos from composers. Sometimes I don't need it, and I have no responsibility to send this demo to somewhere because I have no contacts with developers. I have a contact with localized managers because my main work now is overdubbing and localizing the foreign games, AAA class. So, and I write them back, guys, it's not my responsibility. I cannot help you. You need to find developers who need the composer for their existing projects, you know, and for the projects they're working on. And this is very important point. You have to know with whom you must be connected in the game industry. Sometimes it's executing producers in some developing companies. So, there's so many in the world, and you can find your own as by no means. You must be looking for in the right place.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Mina?
Yeah, no, for sure. And building on what Jerry is saying is, I suppose it's speed isn't speed isn't a core thing of it. It's like you're not gonna get that paying job as fast as you'd like, because it's not a straightforward path. You spoke about expanding your community and connecting with developers who are gonna hire you, but not connecting in a way where it's like, I'm only here for you to hire me, because that just reeks for a lot of people. The developer I'm working with right now, who are creating the game Enchanted, during a conference, and they were asked about, you know, how would composers approach you? It's like, well, you know, I get even though we clearly have a composer and there's the promotional material has music and there's clearly a lot of indication that we have a composer currently, still get 6 or 7 emails a week saying, do you need a composer? And it becomes a matter of you're only kind of, I'm only interested in one thing from you. I'm not interested in what you're doing. I'm not interested in this. I'm interested in the job you're going to give me. And that's the quickest way to turn someone off. God's sake, if I get Facebook friend requests and like, hey, we have 70 friends in common, cool. And then immediately I press accept and it's like my page. You're chasing numbers and I don't want to be friends with you. Go away. I try to initiate conversations. Hello, how are you? Nice to connect. Nothing. Like my page. So that's all I was for you? That's all I was for you, was just a number for your page? Like, no one likes to feel that way.
Yeah.
And developers definitely don't like to feel that way. If you don't develop an organic relationship with these developers, then they will not hire you. And in terms of Jerry was speaking about building your portfolio, that does include a lot of work that won't be paid if it's not paid for everyone else. It's like, because we talk about working for free and working for exposure and that kind of thing. If someone's developing something and paying everyone else but you, that's a really sucky situation. If they're like, you know what, we don't really have a budget for anyone, that's a different story. Then you find a reason to do that, because even a bad game can have fantastic music. And Lord knows, on the radio, I play a lot of, like, I don't really speak about the games, the quality of the games. I'll say, you know what, like, the game could be absolute trash, but have beautiful music. I'm never going to say, oh, you know, the game's absolute trash, but here's the beautiful music. I might say, you know, the game wasn't as popular as the music is. And it's the same with film. For God's sake, at some point, M. Night Shyamalan was getting a lot of crap for his movies, but James Newton Howard really didn't suffer that same wrath for composing for those movies. And that's the beauty of working in the field, is your portfolio can still have something fantastic, even if it's not attached to the best project. You just create a SoundCloud link and you're fine. It's like the music stands on its own, and you say it was attached to this project. Whether it sucks or not is kind of secondary at that point. What happens is that you have built some experience.
Yeah.
I was even listening to some music by John Powell, and I didn't realize his first film was Face Off. And like, Face Off is a totally ridiculous film. Might he be embarrassed by the fact that was his first film? I don't know, but it definitely sounds great. I've never seen the movie, but if it's like if it's that ridiculous and it's Nicolas Cage and that kind of thing, it's the whole thing. Your music can still stand apart as long as there's something in your experience that someone can listen to, and that comes to the point of no one's going to hire you for something they don't know you can do.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Thank you, Jay. Any thoughts on the way of getting the foot in the door?
I mean, like, paid gigs. You know, there's so many complex layers and all that, and I'm aware of time because we want to probably look at other questions. But I will have to say, like, you know, luck is a huge factor as well. It's not just it's the right time for you, it's also the right time for the developer that you've been curating a relationship with, and whether they have funding or another. So, you know, do take that into consideration, that there's a lot of factors already within it. You also and definitely I am going to say, like, yes, do create organic relationships. Don't be just another number or statistics for your Facebook page or something. Developers are the same as that way. You know, they will get a lot of emails from composers going, hey, do you need a composer? You know, do your research. Is this the kind of developer that you do want to actually work with in the future? Maybe the project now may not work out, but maybe they will have a future project that you may be a better candidate to work with. So don't share the wealth of knowledge as well with your other fellow composers as well. It's not, I know we are all in competition with each other, but we don't need to like cut each other's throats trying to get that paid gig either, because no one wants to work with someone like that.
Absolutely. Absolutely, yeah. Okay, any final thoughts on that question? Olga, did you want to add anything?
No, actually, I think that we have another really good question from our viewers. Yeah. So it's what's the main difference between scoring for games and scoring for films? If there is any.
The classic question.
maybe this time we can go in reverse order, because Jade has been last every time so far, so maybe we can reverse it. That would be good. Jade! Go for
it. Okay, so I think trying to describe games versus films. Games, you're definitely composing to an interactive medium, but that medium can be so many different systems within itself. So you can't just say, oh yeah, I'm composing for a game, but then like, what game? Is it like a point and click narrative game? Is it like a Metroidvania type game? Is it kind of an open world kind of exploration type game? There is no kind of one game system fits all of these different other games. So I think the biggest thing about that is that you need to look at the game systems, you need to look at the game design, and then you need to compose for that specific design. Compared to film, where like, okay, these are the edits, these are the story beats, these are the cuts, you can work with or against that. With games, we don't know. It can be anything, I think.
So yeah. in a sense, are you suggesting that there's in some sense, it's more complex, it's more challenging with games?
Yes, I think it is, just because we don't... game music is meant to communicate with the player, so we are meant to either inform the player like, okay, we are setting the scene for the next scene within the game, or we are going to react to whatever action you did within the game. So you need to be... So whatever you write needs to be malleable for both sets of scenes, whereas in music, within film music, that is already quite static and is already locked, whereas in game, it can be anything.
But is it really locked when they say picture lock and it's not locked?
Yeah. I mean, like when it's already like in the cinema, like, okay, that is locked now. When it's still in the editing room floor in like post-production, maybe not quite locked just yet. Yeah. But yeah, so it's a lot of trial and error. There's a lot of play testing involved. Like a lot of your work will end up in the cutting room floor just because we were trying this like a particular combat design. We had this idea, it didn't quite work, and then you need to like figure out why isn't it working and what you need to do. So yeah, I think it's a lot more trial and error in that way.
I mean, what comes to my mind is that, you know, if you're thinking about being a game composer, you really need to be a gamer.
I would say, but there are game composers who aren't necessarily gamers who have come into it, but they've already been really great composers for film and kind of really understood how to work with the medium. Lorne Balfe, actually, I think is one of... Not that he's not as much of a gamer, but you know, he came into Assassin's Creed, which already had an established fan base, and actually he was one of the composers I interviewed a couple of years ago. We were talking about his experience with Assassin's Creed, and it was like, man, people were already in love, obviously, with the Jesper Kids music, and I kind of come in here, I'm the stranger, and people were kind of ready to pounce, and like, there is unfortunately a toxic side to every fan base, and thankfully gaming is a lot more expansive and inclusive now, and it isn't nearly as toxic, or a lot of what you see about it can be toxic, but there is so much positivity, and that's why getting into a video game developer community, you can really get to know a lot more about the positive aspects of this.
Okay.
But yeah, you don't necessarily need to be like, it helps a lot, especially when you kind of live it. Because if you're composing for film or TV, you're internalizing a lot of what you're seeing. You're internalizing, you know, the camera zooms. You're internalizing the establishing shots. You're internalizing the dialogue and tension things and all that kind of stuff. So with gaming, you're internalizing a lot of the experience that the gamer is going to have. And therefore you can write from that perspective. It's not nearly as straightforward sometimes, especially with so many potential ways of doing video game music and video games. Like, man, it's incredible the amount of creativity in the video game industry. And it's not all AAA. There's a lot of great things in AAA, but so many creative things aren't being done in the indie side of things. And that's a big thing, actually, because people often ask about trends and ask about where it's going. There's a lot of creativity in indie developers, and the music is equally creative. In fact, like the Australian equivalent of the Grammys, the ARIA Awards, they've just received the first video game soundtrack nomination for the Untitled Goose Game, by the soundtrack by Dan Golding, cool. which is a recutting of Debussy. Which piece was it? Prelude number 12 or something. It's incredible to think about it like that. And this is a game that was basically an indie thing that took the world by storm. Sorry, I went into different things altogether, which don't even answer the question, so I apologize.
You've already answered our next 3 questions.
Yeah.
Jerry.
Yes, okay. Jerry.
Yeah.
Any thoughts about that question, about the difference between games and films from a scoring point of
view? The most big difference is your music must be looped.
Right.
If you cannot loop your music, it's not a game music,
Unless it's a cutscene.
yeah. Cutscenes is a fantastic point when you can relax and record just full story as you want to see it. So particularly it's process when you can record 5 or maybe more, maybe less melodies for the one situation. It must be a combat, it must be peaceful, traveling, or tension moment, and all of these moments must be reflected in your compositions, and it must be very important, as I said it before, the communication and good relations with the developing team, because sometimes we do not see the game when we start to record our music, because we started at once with developers when they started to create the game. We started at one point, and for me, was a very big experience when I was an executive producer for the few games, and I was responsible for music, and I have relationships with composer. It was my friend, and that is why he was in this business and he was in these projects, because it was very comfortable for me to work with him. I can come to his house, to his studio, and discuss him at once any thoughts I got. I can explain every step of the game, every feeling of the game. Also, the technically, you need a DSDoc, okay? And design document will explain you what kind of expectations developers got, and you can form your ideas. You can make up something your own vision of this project, and when you have the vision, you have an ideas. Okay, and I think this is the biggest difference between games and films, because when you start to compose the music for film, you already have any pictures, any draft cut, raw cut, or something else, and you can create the long compositions about three hours long for all of this story. In video games, it's not working because you have the short or maybe a little bit longer pieces of your composition, and you have to unite it in one big story. It must be implemented in each other. When you walk through some forest, you get on the lane and see the big boss, and it must and the theme is change it once, and this changing couldn't be too rough for ears of gamers. It must be like legato.
Yeah. And so, I love that Jerry kind of gets really in the technical nitty-gritty of things. It's amazing.
Thank you very much.
Chase. Chase.
Oh, sorry.
Chase is joining us.
Yeah.
Oh, Chase.
Chase.
Awesome.
Chase, welcome.
There he is.
He's connecting.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Okay, cool. Jerry, did you
Hi.
Hi, Chase.
Hi, Chase. Hi. Nice to meet you.
Welcome. Can you hear us?
I don't think we're hearing any audio yet.
Can you hear us, Chase?
Hello.
Hi.
Hey.
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 Cool. All right. How you doing? How you doing, Chase?
We can hear you.
Can't hear you.
No.
Turn on your mic.
What's your mic setting on Zoom? Because that always catches a lot of people out I've worked with.
What did I walk into here?
Yeah, there we go.
Oh,
There you go.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we were just discussing. Thanks for joining us. It's great to meet you.
Great to meet you too. Thanks for having me.
I'm
Hello,
Brian.
I'm Jerry.
Hi, Jerry.
So we are discussing a question from one of the viewers, and we've almost finished it, I think. But if you have some thoughts, they'd be very welcome. Which is the main differences between scoring for games and scoring for films?
Oh yeah, that infamous question. I love that one. I'm pretty sure it was already answered to bits already, but yeah, if you want me to weigh in, I totally can.
Well, I suppose what's your experience with it? Is there a particularly unique perspective you've had on a project with that?
I've only scored about 2 films in my entire career because I've been working in the industry for about 9 years and I've shipped about 18 games in that time. But as I always say, it's not the same. With film, you actually know what's going to happen. It's a very linear track format. With games, it's very ambiguous. You never know what the player is going to do. So the music kind of has to adapt to that. And I specialize in adaptive scoring. So I've actually specialized the compositions to align with player mechanics even more than just like loops that are for per level basis. So now if they're entering combat systems, that music will adapt based off of what the player wants to engage or not engage within. So with film, you don't really have that right now. I mean, there was the standard of try to follow film. Games are trying to follow film, and now film is trying to follow games. So the reverse is there, and it's very interesting.
Okay.
And I think there's a really great video by John Paisano around the score for Spider-Man, the PS4 Spider-Man, and he just goes behind the scenes. It's a pretty short video, but he says, the way that the music, all the layers kind of get remixed based on what the player is doing, that he doesn't even recognize some of the cues. When they come back, it's just like, whoa, this is like completely different because the player decided to swing across a building and then punch a bad guy and then kind of get onto a helicopter, and it's just and how the music then adapts is just, it's incredible, like the ways in which you can do this.
Yeah, if I found that I've got a couple AAA friends and they had mentioned that the exact same thing, and he's like they didn't use my music the exact same way that I had intended it to be. But when you're for more AAA games, they want stems of your music, which are just basically, if you have the arrangement, what those instrument palettes are sectioned out to be, and then they have a proprietary engine that will adjust according to whatever that needs to fit whatever the team has decided to implement that as. And so yeah, the score can kind of just get totally remixed, totally revamped, and not sound the same as it was delivered, but it happens.
Yeah, and just going off Jerry's point of things need not to be harsh on the ears, I did a bit of sound design for a while, and just getting sound design for repetitive sounds that people are going to hear over and over again is incredibly hard to make it satisfying. Because it's like, oh, this sounds like water dripping. Yeah, but when I have to hear it 18 times a minute, it's going to grate on me. And it's the same with music. Is the music going to grate on you? Or can you listen to it for extended periods of time with like very low fatigue? And that's one of the considerations. Because film music, as you say, it's just, you're going to hear the thing once and move on. Or you're going to hear that cue once or that really harsh thing once for its effect and move on. Yeah. But if you're going to hear it again and again and again, and especially with the Spider-Man game, the sound design where the webbing sounds are really satisfying. And that's the sound you hear most in the game. So to think about that in terms of sound and in terms of music, how addictive it's going to be.
Yeah, cool. Good point. Yeah, thank you, guys. I have a question from our friend Navid in Trinidad, who joined us on the last round table. It's a technical question, I guess. now forgive me if I pronounce this wrongly. He asks, W-wise or F-mod? Is that
wise?
Wise.
But I'm not choosing wise.
As in, you're saying the pronunciation is wise.
Well, I have a T-shirt, and from them it says "wise." So I love just saying it. It's like it's not anyone's fault but their own. You put like a W before, and it's like, how do you say that word?
So, what do you think? Anybody? I mean, is it what?
I think we were talking about technical.
Viva is a very comfortable tool for composer and for sound designer when you work with game. It has a lot of tons of tools, and you can create the stage. You can move your sound points in a game space, and you can do anything. I cannot say the F mode is bad. F mode is a very good open source tool, and you can do almost all the same things there, but it's more complicated because you cannot do it by yourself. You ask for programmers, do something, check points, and create some locations for your sound dots, and it complicates a lot, and that is why wise.
Okay, cool, thank you. Anybody else? Quick thoughts about that?
Yeah, I've used all three, and I'm actually I kind of alluded to whatever I was going to answer. I've used both, but there's one, and I'm actually doing a talk about this in a couple months at ADC. Use Elias, and even though Jerry was saying like it's not, it's open to a point where you can get it to work, but you actually can get it to work in everything else between Wise, Fmod, and Elias, and with going into Unity, whereas you really don't need the programmers so much anymore, which is really good because then it makes us a little bit more autonomous. I typically have used Elias, and that's where I've been that is actually great because they actually created a Unity plugin, whereas if you don't need that scripting, and I've been doing some streams about that on my Twitch channel to show like how does that actually kind of work and how does it interplay. They all have got great benefits. The problem that I find is that what is the developer comfortable with at the end of the day? Like, what do they want to ship with? And because it comes down to money, if they don't want to use the logo, if they don't want to give a percentage, if they don't have $5,000 for the upfront cost of that, becomes the barrier I find to entry and such. So you can use all these tools, but we have to make the developer comfortable to say, hey, this is going to enhance your game along with great art, along with great writing, along with great rigging, a great cinematics, everything that you have before. This is also going to enhance that and make it stand out better. So you can use all three. I think it's going to be solid.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
100%.
Yeah, sometimes some of the budget is the biggest tears of of all developers. Because if you have no publisher, it's a very, very difficult task to create a good project.
Guys,
In my experience of, oh, sorry, Brian. Yes.
I just wanted to say, are you guys okay to carry on for maybe 10 more minutes and then we'll stop? What do you think?
Came in late, so yeah, I'm here. Yeah. I'm good. I'm sorry.
No worries. We're glad that you're here, actually, and you've already, made some great contributions. Thank you, guys. Can I move on to another question? Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
It's a really fun one, actually. Again, from the viewers. It should be a quicker one. Which is your favorite game soundtrack?
That's like asking who's your favorite child.
Yeah. It's not about yours. So Chase, maybe. Chase.
Oh man. I don't have one. I wrote a blog about this on my website. I have 50. But if I had to choose one right now, the one that came to my head off the top, I usually do a different one every time, but it's going to be Echo, Defender of the Future by Tim Follin. I was a huge fan of Tim Follin's music. He wrote Pictionary. He did time tracks on Sega Genesis. He did a lot of Sega Genesis stuff. But Echo, Defender of the Future on Dreamcast.
And what would you summarize was the main reason why this is a really favorite one for you?
Tim Follin has a craft and a talent of, no matter what chipset he uses or what sound palette that he has, to bring this musical just encapsulament of goodness, no matter what it is, to make anything sound good and just put you right in the game and understand. He understands that the game music is a part of the entire art form. It's not separate. It just fits, and it's just masterful writing in that regard. It sucks that he's not doing it so much now anymore. I know he released the game like maybe 4 years ago, but I'd love for him to come back to the industry. It'd be so amazing.
Maybe he's going to watch this.
Tim, if you're out there, I love your stuff.
Okay. Jade, what's the favorite of yours?
Oh, definitely Final Fantasy IX, because that was the soundtrack that made me decide to become a video game composer. But I think I have a really soft spot for Final Fantasy 15 as well, because that was another life-changing soundtrack in which during that time I was waitressing, and I played Final Fantasy 15, and then it just hit me, just like, no, come back to doing game music. And so on that, the next day on Monday, I just wrote an email saying, yeah, I'm done. And now I'm back in the industry. So yeah, a really soft spot for that. Yeah.
So London lost a great waitress, huh?
Yep.
So
Chase was approving. Is this in your top 50, Chase? Yeah.
It is actually. It is only because, and not 15 subsidiary. 15 is great, but because the same composer, Hamayuzi Masashi, wrote that music for 15, and on my list was Final Fantasy 10. So that's the bridge there.
Jerry, do you have a favorite?
My favorite is Metal Gear Solid 2, the second Solid Snake story. It was the first game that makes me cry, and with sound design and music and with all sound environment I found there. It was very atmospheric, and I was completely implemented in story, and it was a great experience. Also, The Gun, it's a Western game of Activision. It's very old games because I'm very old. So I was born when we have no cell phones. We have just boxes with discs. That's why the old games is my favorite. Fable, Gun, Metal Gear Solid, Resident Evil, the first parts, Silent Hill as well.
You're giving me your top 50 now. You're doing one. Ace Combat soundtrack it was my favorite, very old time. Cool. And so, Mina, any particular favorites? Mina?
Well, I more have favorite composer. Like, if my favorite composer is Jesper Kyd. Yes. And funnily enough, we share a birthday, which is just like, I was a fan of his for years, and it's like, birthdays. It's like, what? It was just randomly on a Wikipedia, and it's because as you put in that video intro, Hitman 2, like Silent Assassin. When I was 16, I heard that and I was like, whoa! And I just got entrenched, and everything he did for Hitman, and then I would say Assassin's Creed 2 as well is probably one of my absolute top ones. And Assassin's Creed 1, but Assassin's Creed 2 is just really special. And in fact, I did my like an entire research project just on that soundtrack, and it, like 10,000 word thesis or essay, whatever you want, just on the narrative and supportive functions of Assassin's Creed 2, of the music and how it functions in the whole thing. Yeah, it is very influential in the fact that theme carries on throughout the whole series. Those just 4 notes, da, 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 amazing. And then beyond that, like I listen to at least 500-600 soundtracks a year through my work on the radio. So, like, it is very hard. I have a top 500. I don't have a top 50. And
no time.
But speaking of tiers, Journey. Like, I bawled my eyes out. And I already knew the music and it was beautiful, but once I played throughout the whole game, like, that was just like one of the most transcendental gaming experiences of my life.
Wow, this is like a confessional, about crying.
Well, Austin Wintry, by the way, the Austin Wintry journey. Like,
Chase,
so
when did you cry, man?
When did I cry? It was from the game soundtrack, of course. Out of the 50. I would have to say, though, the part I cried was Final Fantasy Legend 2 on Game Boy. And this is kind of like what I was listening to. Like, most people start those instruments, and I was playing an instrument at that time. Alto saxophone was my first one. But I didn't realize that my other instrument was a sound test on Game Boy. And from Kenji Ito and, of course, the magnanimous Nobuo Uematsu, they created that soundtrack on that thing. And the story of when his father is leaving out the window, and this beginning scene is like, "Dad, are you leaving?" He's like, "Yeah, I've got to go." And he's like, "When are you coming back?" And he says, "I'll be back someday." And it was just like, and I'm like, "Oh man, your dad's leaving you." You're as a child, you're like, "You don't want your dad to leave you." so I was crying early.
You're gonna make me cry.
Speaking of, Nier Automata made me cry buckets as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. If we're talking about soundtracks that made everyone cry, that'll be my one.
That would have been a good question, Guys, we're kind of out of time. It's been great, and we only got through like 4 or 5 questions. So, I mean, I would love to do another one another time.
It was a great time.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
All of you guys are perfect, and it was very, very big satisfaction to meet you and to be involved in this conversation. It's great experience.
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chase.
You're magic.
I will echo these sentiments very much.
Olga, thank you for helping me to run it and to organize it and everything.
Thank you.
So guys,
thank you, all of you.
Let's stay in touch, and let's perhaps do another one maybe after New Year or something. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.